By 2017, Judge Frank Caprio had become a viral sensation. Caught in Providence reached 40 million views. National media celebrated America's kindest judge, the man who paid fines himself, hugged defendants, offered second chances. Behind the warmth, Caprio was reviewing numbers that didn't add up, over 200 DUI convictions from a single officer. March 2018, another hearing begins. Officer Torres testifies with authority. Caprio's signature compassion meets procedural instinct. He requests dashboard footage. The courtroom monitor displays split screen, testimony versus video evidence. Frame 0:047:33 contradicts everything Torres just said under oath. The viral judge's smile vanishes. His courtroom has been contaminated for years. The defendant's life hangs on 18 seconds of video nobody was supposed to review. The hearing room erupts. America's kindest judge is about to become its most dangerous whistleblower. Frank Caprio's rise in Providence was textbook American success. Third-generation Italian-American, appointed to municipal court in 1985, re-elected 8 times without a corruption allegation. By the time Caught in Providence went viral in 2016, he'd become a folk hero, the judge who saw people, not case numbers. He paid parking tickets for struggling mothers. He hugged veterans. He gave kids second chances. The courtroom felt more like family court than criminal proceedings. But beneath the viral clips and feel-good headlines, there was a pattern Caprio couldn't ignore. Officer Michael Torres brought him DUI cases with an 85% conviction rate. That number alone wasn't suspicious. Torres was good at his job. It was the consistency that bothered him. Every case followed the same script: failed sobriety test, open container visible, defendant cooperative but clearly intoxicated. The yellow evidence folders piled up. Caprio signed conviction after conviction. Trust, he'd learned over 33 years on the bench, was a courtroom's currency. Until someone counterfeits it. March 2018 brought case number 2018-DUI-4471 to Caprio's docket. Officer Michael Torres took the stand with the bearing of a 12-year veteran. 340 DUI arrests, 94% conviction rate. Department commendations lined his record like medals. MAD had named him Officer of Integrity in 2016. His testimony was practiced, confident. Defendant failed field sobriety test, refused breathalyzer, open vodka bottle clearly visible on the passenger floor through the window. The defense attorney barely cross-examined. It was a lost case. The defendant's mother sobbed quietly in the gallery. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Leather creaked as the prosecutor leaned back, satisfied. But something in Torres's phrasing caught Caprio's attention. The way he described the bottle placement felt rehearsed, mechanical. His hand gestured in the air, demonstrating, on the passenger floor, clearly visible from my position at the driver's window. Too precise, too practiced. Caprio glanced at the yellow evidence folder. Standard procedure dictated accepting officer testimony at face value. Rhode Island law allowed it, but 3 decades of watching witnesses had taught him to trust his instincts. Officer Torres, Caprio said quietly, I'd like to review the dashboard camera footage. The prosecutor stood. Unnecessary, Your Honor. The officer's testimony is clear. Caprio's hand was already reaching for the evidence request form. The courtroom technician loaded the SD card into the evidence player. Standard procedure rarely changed anything. The monitor flickered to life. Traffic stop, nighttime, headlights cutting through darkness. Torres approached the vehicle, professional and calm. Field sobriety test administered by the book. The defendant cooperated, stumbling slightly but responsive. The video played forward. Timestamp 0047:15. Torres walked to his cruiser, opened the trunk. The camera angle caught everything. Timestamp 0047:33. Torres's hand emerged from the trunk holding a glass bottle, label visible even in the grainy footage. Timestamp 0047:51. He walked to the defendant's vehicle, placed the bottle on the passenger seat. Timestamp 0048:10. He returned to his cruiser, keyed his radio, called for backup. Then he discovered the bottle through the window. The courtroom froze. The prosecutor half stood from his chair. The defense attorney's pen slipped from his fingers, clattering against the table. The defendant's mother stopped crying. The monitor remained paused on frame 0047:33. Torres's hand clearly visible, bottle in grip, trunk open behind him. Caprio leaned forward. His voice was steady, judicial, but everyone in that room heard the earthquake underneath. "Officer Torres, can you explain this discrepancy?" Silence. 10 seconds. 15. Torres's face had gone white. "I may have made an error in my report, Your Honor." The truth doesn't need 18 seconds to explain itself. That night, Caprio sat in his home office overlooking the Providence skyline and requested every DUI case Torres had brought to his court since 2015, when dashboard cameras became mandatory for Providence PD. 340 arrests, 320 convictions. 127 involved open container evidence as primary grounds for arrest. His clerk delivered 89 SD cards the next morning, stacked like poker chips on his desk. He began watching them chronologically. March rain drummed against the windows. Cigar smoke curled toward the ceiling. Case after case, the same pattern emerged. Timestamp gaps, 6, 7, sometimes 8 minutes. Torres walking to the trunk. Torres retrieving bottles. Beer bottles, vodka handles, wine bottles still cold from the store. Different vehicles. Different defendants. Same hand motion. The choreography never varied. Some footage showed Torres glancing at the dashboard camera before making his move, as if he'd calculated the blind spot, but miscalculated the angle. By midnight, Caprio had documented 43 cases with clear evidence of planting. By 3 a.m., 67. Rhode Island DUI convictions required physical evidence or failed breathalyzer. Torres had provided both, except the physical evidence came from his trunk, not the defendant's vehicle. You think one bad cop corrupted the system? Wait until you see who knew. In case number 2016-DUI-1893. Caprio paused the footage. The bottle Torres planted. He recognized it. He'd seen it before, in another case, 2 months earlier. Torres was recycling evidence. April 2018. Caprio met the Rhode Island Attorney General in a private conference room, windowless and soundproof. The AG's office had been investigating for 6 months. An anonymous tip received the previous October flagged timestamp anomalies in Torres cases. The whistleblower, a night shift evidence clerk who'd spotted the gaps, copied files, and reported it internally. She'd been too afraid to go public. Internal Affairs had been sitting on it. Torres wasn't working alone. Sergeant Paul Ricci had reviewed every Torres case, approved every report, signed off on every conviction. Ricci was a 28-year veteran with 2 commendations, 4 months from retirement with full pension. Coffee-stained personnel files spread across the conference table. Morning traffic noise filtered through the walls. The AG believed it ended with Torres and Ricci, 2 bad actors gaming the system. But Caprio had kept watching footage. In case number 2015-DUI-0423, a third officer appeared in frame, standing near Torres's cruiser during the timestamp gap. The report never mentioned him. Ricci's signature appeared 127 times across the case files. Always the supervising officer, always approving Torres's reports without question. A personnel file photo showed them together at the 2012 department Christmas party, drinks raised, smiling. The AG wanted to believe it was contained. Caprio knew better. Corruption isn't one bad apple. It's the tree that never questioned the harvest. 3 days later, Caprio found the receipt. $340 for demonstration bottles, purchased from evidence seizures, logged as training materials. Signed by Paul Ricci, dated 2015. May 2018. Caprio began interviewing defendants from Torres cases. Most had already served jail time, licenses suspended, jobs destroyed, families fractured. Interview number 23 broke the pattern open. The defendant, a 34-year-old teacher who'd lost her career over a DUI conviction, mentioned something nobody else had. The officer made 2 trips to his trunk that night. I remember because it seemed odd, like he forgot something the first time. Caprio pulled her case footage. There it was. 2 trips, 2 bottles placed. 1 logged in evidence, 1 disappeared. The key had been hiding in plain sight, buried in testimony nobody took seriously because the officer's word carried institutional weight. Caprio requested department inventory logs. Torres's assigned cruiser trunk contained 15 unopened bottles at the time of his suspension. Vodka, whiskey, beer, wine. All purchased from evidence seizures through proper channels. All logged as training materials for DUI detection seminars. The receipt from 2015 wasn't an anomaly. It was standard operating procedure. Providence PD evidence protocol explicitly allowed officers to purchase seized items for training purposes. The system wasn't broken. It was built to look the other way. One receipt led Caprio to a warehouse in South Providence where the department stored evidence awaiting trial or destruction. The inventory specialist pulled records going back 5 years, 400 bottles unaccounted for. Not missing, transferred to training inventory under Ricci's authorization. Every transfer approved, every signature legitimate, every bottle available for Torres to plant in vehicles during traffic stops. The answer had always been in the paperwork. Nobody had bothered to look because the paperwork was perfect. If you're hooked now, wait till you see who else was trained this way. June 2018. The FBI opened a civil rights investigation into Providence PD. 127 potential false imprisonment cases. Federal charges possible. Special Agent Maria Delgado specialized in police corruption. She'd broken departments in Baltimore and Chicago. Providence would be smaller, cleaner, or so she thought. Delgado pulled Torres's training records. He'd been certified through a program called Advanced DUI Detection, run by Paul Ricci since 2012. The program had trained 140 officers statewide. Delgado requested course materials. Page 47 of the training manual, Securing Evidence Integrity. The language emphasized creative documentation and courtroom presentation strategies. It taught officers how to build airtight cases through comprehensive evidence collection, which included maintaining training inventory for demonstration purposes. The manual never explicitly instructed planting evidence. It didn't have to. It created the infrastructure and justified the materials. The rest happened through example and institutional pressure. When Delgado interviewed Torres in a federal interrogation room, fluorescent lights humming overhead, his hands shaking, tape recorder clicking with each breath, he named names. Ricci ran the program. Lieutenant Frank Morrison designed the curriculum. Morrison was a 33-year veteran, 6 months from retirement, a department legend who'd trained 3 generations of Providence officers. Torres claimed he'd been taught this method. He believed it was standard procedure, a way to ensure convictions against obviously intoxicated drivers who'd discarded evidence before the stop. The interrogation lasted 6 hours. At hour 4, Torres said, "I thought I was doing my job." Ricci told us judges rubber-stamp DUI cases. Nobody checks the footage. At hour 5, Morrison said conviction rates determine promotions. I wanted to make sergeant. Training a lie doesn't make it protocol. It makes it conspiracy. The question Delgado couldn't answer. How many of the 140 trained officers were planting evidence? July 2018. FBI surveillance tightened around Morrison and Ricci, both still on active duty pending internal investigation. Federal wiretaps captured Morrison on a call with Ricci. Frank's making noise. Needs to back down. Frank was Caprio. Morrison was discussing damage control. 2 days later, Ricci met Morrison at a Federal Hill restaurant. Conversation recorded through directional microphones. The wiretap caught everything. Ricci's voice, strained. We trained 140 officers over 6 years. If this goes federal, the whole department burns. Morrison, calm and cold. Then we make sure it doesn't go federal. FBI surveillance photos showed an envelope passed across the table. Later analysis revealed $15,000 cash inside, payment for Ricci to destroy training records stored in his home office. But the FBI already had copies. Caprio received an anonymous phone call that week. Male voice, unidentified. Judge, check Morrison's offshore account. Cayman Islands. Follow the consulting fees. The FBI traced the call. Burner phone, Providence area code, never used again. Morrison had been receiving consulting fees from a private security training company since 2012. The company existed only on paper. $430,000 deposited over 6 years. The money trail connected to a shell corporation owned by Morrison's brother-in-law. Restaurant clatter and wiretap static became the soundtrack of the investigation. Morrison's attorney contacted Caprio directly, suggested reconsidering the scope of inquiry to protect department morale. The implicit threat was clear: back off or face professional consequences. Caprio didn't back off. This is where legends become liabilities, when the institution protects corruption more fiercely than it protects the public. Morrison's offshore account grew as his training program expanded. Every new officer trained meant more federal DUI convictions, more grant money for the department, more consulting fees deposited in the Caymans. Morrison had monetized false imprisonment. Subscribe, because what comes next will redefine corruption. August 2018. The full audit landed like a bomb. 340 Torres cases, but 1,200 cases across officers trained through Morrison's program. 140 officers participated in advanced DUI detection seminars between 2012 and 2018. Estimated 890 false DUI convictions statewide based on timestamp analysis and evidence patterns. Caprio's courtroom became a command center. Defendants began filing appeals. The public defender's office, overwhelmed, requested emergency state funding to handle the caseload. An Excel spreadsheet circulated through the FBI field office. 890 rows, each representing a destroyed life, jail time served, jobs lost, children separated from parents, licenses suspended, mortgages foreclosed. The FBI expanded the investigation to Massachusetts and Connecticut. Similar training programs, same curriculum, same results. Morrison was arrested August 22, 2018, charged with civil rights violations, evidence tampering, fraud, and conspiracy. Ricci, facing federal prison, flipped. He agreed to testify against Morrison in exchange for a reduced sentence. Torres pleaded guilty to 15 counts of evidence tampering, sentenced to 15 months in federal prison, lost his pension. The courtroom chaos was constant, phones ringing, motions piling on Caprio's desk, media trucks parked outside Providence Municipal Court. The Rhode Island Attorney General held a press conference. This represents the largest police corruption case in state history. But the real number wasn't in the press release. It was in the lives. 890 people convicted based on planted evidence. Some served years in prison. Some lost custody of their kids. Some died before exoneration. The system didn't fail 890 times. It was designed to succeed this way. Conviction rates determined promotions. Grant money-funded departments, training programs built institutional corruption into standard procedure. The question wasn't how it happened. The question was how nobody noticed until a judge pressed play on an SD card. September 2018 brought the first wave of exonerations. 127 Torres cases overturned in Providence alone. Defendants released from jail, licenses restored, criminal records expunged. Case number 2018-DUI-4471, the original case that started everything, resulted in a formal apology and $50,000 settlement. The apology letter, signed by Caprio, now hangs framed on the defendant's living room wall. Morrison's trial began in October. Ricci testified for the prosecution. The training program's true scope emerged through testimony and documents. Morrison had designed a system where officers were incentivized through conviction rates. Promotions, commendations, and preferred assignments went to officers with high DUI arrest numbers. Morrison's own testimony, captured in training videos introduced as evidence, showed him teaching. Video gaps are normal equipment malfunction, juries trust uniforms, judges rubber stamp cases with physical evidence. Build your case around what you can control. The training wasn't about better policing. It was about gaming the system. The federal jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on 23 counts. Morrison received 12 years in federal prison. He showed no emotion when the verdict was read. Ricci was sentenced to 4 years, but died of a heart attack 8 months into his sentence, alone in a medium-security facility in Pennsylvania. Torres served 13 months, released December 2019, last known working construction in Florida. 890 cases were reviewed over the next 2 years. 670 convictions overturned. 220 upheld based on legitimate evidence, failed breathalyzers, witness testimony, or other proof independent of planted bottles. Rhode Island reformed its DUI evidence law in 2019, requiring mandatory video review before conviction and independent oversight of all physical evidence. The courtroom gavel echoed on October 15, 2018, as Morrison was led away in handcuffs. The gallery erupted, some cheering, some weeping, some sitting in stunned silence. Justice delayed is injustice. Justice discovered is just the beginning of reckoning. November 2018. Death threats arrived at Caprio's chambers. Letters called him rat judge and cop killer. Providence PD Union publicly condemned him, issued a statement claiming he was anti-police and had destroyed department morale. Court in Providence viewership dropped 40%. The comment section split. Half praised him as a hero, half accused him of betraying officers who risked their lives daily. Caprio's family received threatening letters at home. One envelope contained a single bullet, no return address. His wife hired private security. Courthouse metal detectors, previously routine, became essential. Caprio arrived each morning with a security escort. Protesters gathered outside, some supporting him, some denouncing him, all angry. 140 officers connected to Morrison's training program faced consequences. 89 resigned before investigations concluded. 34 were fired. 17 took early retirement. Providence PD lost 12% of its force. Department morale collapsed. Officers who had nothing to do with the scandal felt tainted by association. Recruiting new officers became nearly impossible, who wanted to join a department synonymous with corruption. But slowly, national media reframed the narrative. Major outlets profiled Caprio as the judge who broke the blue wall. Editorial boards praised his courage. Legal reform advocates held him up as proof the system could self-correct. Caprio's popularity rebounded, but the personal cost remained. FBI Special Agent Delgado received a commendation and transferred to a corruption unit in D.C., where she'd investigate police misconduct nationwide. The night clerk who first flagged Torres's timestamp gaps remained anonymous. She refused all media interviews, declined the whistleblower award Providence tried to give her. According to one source close to the investigation, she said simply, "I just watched the video. Anyone could have." But they didn't. Doing the right thing costs. The question is, who pays? The person who speaks up, or everyone who stays silent? One more SD card remained in evidence storage, never entered into court records, its contents known only to the clerk who filed it away. March 2020. COVID-19 shut down courtrooms across America. Caprio, 65 years old, sat in his home office reflecting on 2 years of aftermath. 670 defendants exonerated, but their lives could never be fully restored. Jobs were lost permanently. Marriages ended during incarceration. Children grew up with parents in jail for crimes they didn't commit. Some defendants never recovered financially. Morrison, serving year 2 of 12 in federal prison, filed an appeal. Denied. Torres gave an interview from Florida, his first public comments since release. "I was following orders. I believed what I was doing was right. Ricci told us we were protecting the public from drunk drivers who ditched evidence. I thought I was one of the good guys." The moral complexity haunted everyone involved. Torres's police academy graduation photo from 2006 showed a young man with a hopeful smile, proud to serve. Somewhere between that photo and frame 0:047:33 of the dashboard footage, something broke. System analysis revealed the root cause. Conviction-based promotions created perverse incentives. Officers who wanted to advance their careers needed numbers. Morrison provided the training and infrastructure to generate those numbers. The department rewarded results without questioning methods. Caprio testified before the Rhode Island legislature in May 2020 via Zoom due to pandemic restrictions. He recommended 12 police reform laws. 8 passed: mandatory video review, independent evidence oversight, whistleblower protection, elimination of conviction-based promotions, civilian review boards, body camera requirements, annual ethics training, and banned creative documentation from all training materials. Ricci's widow filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the state, claiming her husband was made a scapegoat for systemic problems. She lost. Rhode Island became a model for police accountability reform, cited by 8 other states crafting similar legislation. Zoom hearing silence filled Caprio's home office. Empty courtroom photos circulated online. Reform isn't revenge. It's the promise that next time someone will be watching, and that someone won't need 18 seconds to spot a lie. January 2021. The final case from Torres's 890 was resolved. Caprio received an SD card in the mail that week. No return address, postmarked Providence. He recognized it immediately. Same type as the original from case number 2018-DUI-4471. A yellow post-it note attached read, "Case number 2014-DUI-0089, timestamp 1:12:45. You'll want to see this." Caprio loaded the footage. Different officer, different year, but the same trunk motion, the same bottle placement. Frame 01:12:45 showed it clearly. The officer had retired in 2015, moved to Arizona, never investigated. The case was dismissed in 2014 due to lack of breathalyzer evidence. The defendant served 3 years on a separate conviction, released in 2017, died in a car accident in 2019. Too late for exoneration, too late for settlement, too late for anything except knowing. Caprio filed the SD card in his personal archive, a growing collection of evidence documenting what was and what might never be fully uncovered. Dashboard camera policy was now standard across Rhode Island. Mandatory review before conviction. Independent verification of all physical evidence, but only because one clerk noticed timestamp gaps. Only because one judge pressed play. Only because courage appeared in small moments that accumulated into systemic change. Public records show Caprio retired in 2024 after 39 years on the bench. His legacy wasn't defined by 40 million YouTube views or viral clips of compassion. It was defined by 890 overturned convictions, 12 reformed laws, and one simple action: watching video everyone else ignored. The SD card from case number 2018-DUI-4471 sits in the Rhode Island State House, displayed in a glass case near the legislative chambers. A small brass plaque beneath reads, "Evidence of Truth, March 2018. Visitors pass it daily. Most never notice. Those who stop and read learn a simple lesson. The system didn't break that day in Providence. It was revealed. And revelation, unlike corruption, requires only one person willing to see.